The atmosphere inside the studio felt unusually charged the moment Jennifer Lopez walked onto Kelly Clarkson's show. What was expected to be a polished, friendly interview between two global stars quickly carried an undercurrent of tension. Jennifer smiled for the cameras, but her posture was stiff, her responses carefully measured. Kelly opened with warm praise, yet the energy felt fragile, as if both women were walking on invisible cracks. The audience sensed it immediately, unaware they were about to witness a moment that would dominate headlines for days. Kelly began by celebrating Jennifer's long career, highlighting her ability to stay relevant across decades. While the words sounded complimentary, the framing subtly shifted toward pressure and expectations. Jennifer nodded politely, but her eyes betrayed discomfort. She had spent years defending her artistry against critics who questioned her legitimacy, and the conversation felt dangerously close to reopening old wounds. The laughter from the audience felt forced, signaling that something beneath the surface was brewing. As the discussion moved toward Jennifer's recent projects, Kelly made a comment about reinvention being necessary to stay in the spotlight. The remark landed awkwardly. Jennifer paused longer than expected before responding, choosing her words carefully. She spoke about growth being personal, not strategic. The tone of her voice was calm, but the edge was unmistakable. What should have been a routine promotional segment now felt like a philosophical disagreement unfolding live on television. Kelly attempted to lighten the mood with humor, joking about celebrity reinventions and public criticism, but the joke didn't land. Jennifer's smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. She explained that constant public scrutiny takes a toll, especially when accomplishments are minimized. The audience grew quiet, sensing they were witnessing something raw and unscripted. The studio lights felt brighter, amplifying every pause and facial expression. When Kelly referenced social media criticism and suggested artists should develop thicker skin, Jennifer visibly bristled. She leaned forward, her voice firm but controlled, stating that resilience doesn't mean accepting disrespect. The shift in tone was unmistakable. This was no longer a promotional interview, it was a clash of perspectives. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to applaud or remain silent as the tension thickened. Jennifer spoke candidly about being judged differently as a woman in the industry, especially as she aged. Her words carried years of frustration, carefully restrained but deeply felt. Kelly listened, nodding, but followed with a comment about criticism being universal. The response, though well-intentioned, felt dismissive to Jennifer. Her eyes hardened slightly, signaling that patience was wearing thin under the relentless studio spotlight. The turning point came when Kelly questioned whether Jennifer felt pressure to prove herself repeatedly. Though phrased neutrally, the implication struck a nerve. Jennifer took a deep breath and replied that she had been proving herself for decades and shouldn't have to justify her place anymore. The audience murmured softly. The exchange now carried emotional weight that couldn't be smoothed over with humor or applause. Kelly tried to redirect the conversation toward Jennifer's upcoming tour, but the damage had been done. Jennifer's responses grew shorter, her tone more distant. Every attempt to steer back to safe territory seemed to brush against unresolved tension. The warmth that typically defines daytime talk shows had vanished, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that lingered between questions and answers. Sensing the shift, Kelly attempted to reassure Jennifer, emphasizing admiration and respect. However, the reassurance came too late. Jennifer shook her head slightly, explaining that intent doesn't erase impact. Her words were measured but powerful, echoing a sentiment many viewers would later relate to. The audience remained silent, fully aware they were witnessing a breaking point rather than a misunderstanding. Jennifer then stated clearly that the conversation no longer felt respectful. Her voice did not rise, but the firmness was undeniable. Kelly looked surprised, momentarily speechless. Producers off-camera reportedly exchanged anxious glances as the interview veered far off script. The tension was palpable, hanging heavy in the air as millions watched in real time. Without dramatic gestures, Jennifer stood up from her chair. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Kelly quickly tried to respond, asking Jennifer to stay and talk it through. But Jennifer calmly explained that some boundaries shouldn't be crossed, especially on live television. Her composure only heightened the shock of the moment. Security and producers moved subtly into position as Jennifer thanked the audience politely. There was no shouting, no insults, only a quiet firmness that made the moment feel even more intense. Kelly remained seated, visibly stunned, as Jennifer turned and walked toward the exit. The cameras followed, capturing a moment that would soon flood social media timelines worldwide. The show cut abruptly to a commercial break, fueling immediate speculation. Viewers at home scrambled to social media, sharing clips and reactions in real time. Within minutes, hashtags began trending, and the narrative shifted from entertainment to controversy. What exactly had gone wrong became the question everyone wanted answered. Behind the scenes, sources claimed emotions were running high. Jennifer reportedly felt blindsided by the direction of the conversation, while Kelly was said to be shocked by the sudden escalation. Producers scrambled to manage the fallout, aware that this unscripted moment could have lasting repercussions for everyone involved. Fans quickly took sides. Jennifer's supporters praised her for standing her ground and refusing to tolerate subtle disrespect. Kelly's fans defended her, citing her reputation for kindness and empathy. The internet became divided, dissecting every word, pause, and expression in the interview, searching for clues about who crossed the line first. Media outlets replayed the footage repeatedly, analyzing tone and intent. Commentators debated whether the clash reflected deeper industry issues, particularly how successful women are questioned and scrutinized. The moment transcended celebrity gossip, sparking broader conversations about respect, boundaries, and emotional labor in public spaces. Kelly addressed the incident later in the episode, offering an apology to viewers and expressing regret that the conversation escalated. Her voice trembled slightly, revealing the emotional toll of the unexpected confrontation. While her words were sincere, the controversy continued to grow, fueled by non-stop online commentary. Jennifer remained silent for hours after the episode aired, intensifying speculation. When she finally posted a brief message thanking fans for their support, she avoided naming Kelly directly. The restraint suggested a desire to de-escalate rather than inflame the situation further, reinforcing the seriousness of her decision to walk away. Industry insiders noted how rare it is for a guest of Jennifer's stature to be removed from or leave a daytime talk show mid-interview. The incident highlighted shifting power dynamics, where even major platforms must respect personal boundaries. It was a reminder that star power doesn't erase vulnerability. Mental health advocates praised Jennifer for modeling boundary setting on a public stage. They argued that walking away from an uncomfortable situation can be an act of strength, not defiance. The moment resonated with viewers who had long felt pressured to stay silent to keep the peace. As days passed, the initial outrage softened into reflection. Fans revisited Jennifer's career, recognizing how often she has had to defend her talent and choices. The walk-off reframed the narrative, portraying her not as defensive, but as self-aware and unwilling to compromise her dignity. Kelly Clarkson's show continued, but subtle changes were noticeable. Interviews felt more cautious, questions more carefully phrased. Regular viewers sensed a shift in tone, suggesting the incident had a lasting impact behind the scenes, influencing how conversations were approached moving forward. Entertainment analysts compared the moment to other infamous talk show clashes, noting how calm confrontation can be more powerful than explosive arguments. Jennifer's controlled exit stood out precisely because it lacked chaos, forcing viewers to confront the discomfort rather than dismiss it as drama. Sponsors and networks quietly monitored public reaction, aware that modern audiences value authenticity over polished perfection. The incident underscored the risks of live television, where real emotions can disrupt even the most carefully planned programming. Over time, memes and jokes emerged, but many viewers pushed back, insisting the moment deserved seriousness. What happened wasn't entertainment gimmickry, but a real emotional boundary being enforced in real time. That distinction kept the discussion alive long after the clip stopped trending. Communication experts later cited the incident as a case study in how misaligned intentions can escalate quickly. Familiarity between celebrities doesn't guarantee emotional safety. The clash illustrated how past experiences shape present reactions, especially under public scrutiny. Jennifer's next public appearance drew heightened attention. Fans listened closely to her words, searching for hints of reflection or regret. Instead, she spoke about self-respect and personal growth, reinforcing the message implied by her walk-off without revisiting the incident directly. Kelly, too, continued to emphasize empathy in later interviews. Her willingness to acknowledge discomfort publicly helped soften criticism. The moment became less about blame and more about learning, growth, and the complexities of human interaction. In retrospect, the incident symbolized a cultural shift. Audiences no longer expect celebrities to endure discomfort silently for entertainment's sake. Jennifer's decision to leave challenged outdated expectations and sparked conversations about emotional boundaries across industries. What viewers witnessed wasn't just a heated argument, but a rare moment of honesty on live television. Jennifer Lopez being kicked off Kelly Clarkson's show became a story not because of chaos, but because of quiet resolve. It served as a reminder that even under bright lights, self-respect can matter more than staying on stage. As the clip continued to circulate online, communication experts began breaking down the body language displayed during the exchange. They noted how Jennifer's stillness and measured tone contrasted sharply with the escalating discomfort in the room. Her restraint made the moment feel deliberate rather than impulsive. Viewers who had experienced similar situations at work or in personal relationships found themselves relating deeply, interpreting her exit as a form of emotional self-protection rather than confrontation. Entertainment podcasts dedicated entire episodes to the incident, replaying audio and debating the exact moment when the conversation crossed the line. Some argued it was cumulative, built from subtle remarks rather than a single comment. This analysis reinforced the idea that emotional thresholds are often reached quietly, not explosively. Jennifer's calm departure challenged the stereotype that strong reactions must be loud to be valid. Longtime fans of Jennifer revisited her earlier interviews from different eras, noticing how often she had been asked to justify her success. The walk-off reframed those moments, suggesting a pattern rather than an isolated sensitivity. Many felt the incident marked a turning point, where Jennifer publicly chose not to carry the weight of expectations that had followed her for decades. Kelly Clarkson's supporters emphasized her history of creating a welcoming space for guests, suggesting that the live format left little room to correct course once tension surfaced. They argued that miscommunication, rather than malice, fueled the clash. This perspective added nuance to the discussion, reminding audiences that even well-intended conversations can unravel under pressure. Media critics highlighted how the moment reflected broader cultural changes. Audiences are increasingly aware of emotional labor and boundaries, especially for women in high-pressure industries. Jennifer's decision resonated because it mirrored a collective shift toward prioritizing mental well-being over maintaining appearances, even in highly public settings. Weeks later, the incident was referenced in articles about live television risks. Producers acknowledged that no amount of preparation can fully control real human emotion. The walk-off became an example of why flexibility and empathy are essential in broadcasting, where unscripted moments can redefine an entire episode within seconds. Fans attending Jennifer's subsequent concerts noticed renewed confidence in her stage presence. Between songs, her messages centered on self-worth and resilience. Though she never directly referenced the show, the themes aligned closely with the values implied by her decision to leave, strengthening the connection fans felt to her artistry. Kelly Clarkson's later interviews reflected a subtle shift in tone. Questions leaned more toward shared experiences and mutual understanding. Regular viewers sensed an increased awareness in how sensitive topics were approached, suggesting that the incident left a lasting impression on the show's dynamic and pacing. Social commentators observed that the public response differed from similar moments in the past. Instead of demanding apologies or choosing sides aggressively, many viewers focused on empathy and context. This evolution in audience reaction highlighted changing expectations around conflict, favoring understanding over outrage. As time passed, The incident became less about blame and more about reflection. It was referenced in discussions about how public figures navigate authenticity in controlled environments. Jennifer's quiet resolve and Kelly's visible shock created a moment that felt deeply human rather than performative. Younger artists cited the moment as empowering, seeing it as proof that setting boundaries doesn't end careers. The walk-off demonstrated that reputation can be strengthened by integrity, especially when actions align with long-held values rather than short-term optics. Television historians later grouped the incident with other rare walk-offs that changed how interviews are remembered. Unlike dramatic exits of the past, this one stood out for its composure. That restraint forced audiences to sit with the discomfort, making it more impactful than sensational confrontations. The conversation eventually faded from trending lists, but its influence lingered. It continued to be cited in media training sessions and discussions about respectful dialogue. The incident became a quiet benchmark for how emotional boundaries can be asserted without aggression. For Jennifer, the moment added a layer of depth to her public narrative. It wasn't about ego or control, but about choosing dignity in a situation that no longer felt safe. Fans viewed her decision as a reflection of growth rather than defiance. In the end, the story endured because it mirrored real life more than scripted drama. Jennifer Lopez walking away from Kelly Clarkson's show symbolized a choice many people face but rarely make publicly. It reminded audiences that sometimes the strongest statement isn't made with words, but with the courage to step away. As analysts continued to reflect on the incident, many pointed out how the silence following Jennifer's exit spoke louder than any argument could have. The empty chair on set became a visual symbol of unresolved tension, forcing both the audience and the production team to sit with the discomfort. Unlike dramatic confrontations filled with raised voices, this moment lingered because it left questions unanswered, inviting viewers to consider how often people are expected to stay polite at the expense of their own emotional safety. Social media users began sharing personal stories inspired by the moment, describing times they wished they had walked away from conversations that felt diminishing. Jennifer's calm resolve resonated beyond celebrity culture, touching everyday experiences in workplaces, families, and friendships. The incident transformed from entertainment news into a broader reflection on self-respect, showing how a single unscripted decision can ripple into countless personal realizations. Media scholars noted that the power of the moment lay in Jennifer's refusal to escalate. There were no accusations or dramatic statements, only a firm boundary. This approach challenged long-standing expectations that conflict must be allowed to be meaningful. Her quiet exit reframed strength as composure, offering an alternative narrative to how public disagreements are typically portrayed on television. Kelly Clarkson's visible reaction also became part of the discussion. Her stunned expression and delayed response highlighted how quickly control can slip away in live broadcasting. Commentators emphasized that hosts, no matter how experienced, are navigating human emotions in real time. The moment underscored the vulnerability on both sides of the camera, reminding viewers that live television leaves little room for emotional recalibration. As weeks went by, the clip was increasingly referenced in conversations about celebrity boundaries. Public figures are often expected to be endlessly accommodating, but the incident suggested that those expectations are evolving. Jennifer's decision challenged the idea that exposure is always worth discomfort, signaling a shift in how power and consent are negotiated in media spaces. Fans of both women eventually began to find common ground, acknowledging that misunderstandings can happen even between well-intentioned people. The initial polarization softened into more nuanced discussions about intent versus impact. This shift reflected the growing maturity in online discourse, where audiences are learning to hold multiple perspectives without demanding a single villain. Entertainment journalists later described the incident as a defining unscripted moment of the era. In a media landscape saturated with rehearsed authenticity, this exchange felt undeniably real. Its staying power came from its emotional honesty, not shock value, proving that authenticity can be compelling even when it's uncomfortable to watch. Industry workshops and panels reportedly began referencing the moment when discussing guest care and interview dynamics. The emphasis shifted toward pre-interview alignment and emotional awareness rather than rigid scripting. Jennifer's exit became a quiet catalyst for conversations about how media environments can evolve to be more respectful and humane. For Jennifer, the incident subtly reshaped public perception. Rather than being framed as defensive, she was increasingly seen as self-assured and grounded. The walk-off aligned with her long-standing message of self-belief, reinforcing the idea that success also includes knowing when to disengage from spaces that no longer serve you. Kelly Clarkson's continued transparency in Warmth and later episodes helped contextualize the clash as a moment of misalignment rather than hostility. Her willingness to move forward without defensiveness demonstrated professional resilience. Over time, the incident became less about fallout and more about learning curves in high-pressure, live environments. Cultural commentators observed that moments like this are redefining what audiences expect from celebrity interactions. Polished perfection is no longer the goal. Emotional truth is. Jennifer's decision resonated because it reflected a collective fatigue with performative niceness and an increasing respect for honest boundaries. Younger viewers, in particular, cited the moment as influential. Growing up in an era that values mental health awareness, they saw Jennifer's choice as aligned with their own values. The incident became an example of how public figures can model healthy behavior without issuing speeches or explanations. Over time, references to the walk-off appeared in discussions about modern feminism and self-advocacy. Jennifer's calm refusal to continue an uncomfortable exchange was interpreted as an assertion of agency. It highlighted how empowerment can appear subtle, expressed through choice rather than confrontation. As the media cycle moved on, the story settled into pop culture memory as a quiet turning point. It wasn't remembered for chaos or insults, but for restraint. That distinction set it apart from countless other televised clashes, giving it a unique place in conversations about authenticity and respect. In the end, Jennifer Lopez being kicked off Kelly Clarkson's show became more than a headline. It evolved into a moment that captured shifting cultural values, where self-respect outweighs airtime and boundaries matter as much as visibility. The legacy of the moment endures not because of what was said, but because of the courage it took to walk away.